Hello. You can click on invite to join and then I will bring you up. So you should see a request to join button. Press on that and then I'll bring you up with me on let me see. Let me see. I think I'm not sure. Let me ask. Dr. Whiteman should be jumping on in a moment, and so should Wayne Lassane. They should know because they join me every week. I'm going to find out where it is. 1 second.
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Whiteman. Where's the request to join button? What do you see that at? Dr. Rashidian is trying to get on.
It pops up right underneath your picture. And it says request to join. Um, Ask him to touch the live button at the top of the picture. It says that little pink live button. Have him touch that and see if that brings up the request to join.
Okay, he can hear you.
Oh. Well, then do that. Oh, geez. Technology is great, isn't it?
I know. All right. So I hate that we can't though use Instagram on a computer because I'm in my office and I want to like use my computer, but I have to use my laptop and the setup. My stand is like too high on my desk, and I'm like,
I should show you.
I don't know why I can't. I wish that Instagram would get on board and let us use the computer.
Yeah, that's going to cost them a lot of money to do that, from what I heard.
Let me call Dr. Rashidian. Do you see it? Either below your name or where else, low?
Up above your picture, there's a pink or red, depending on your screen. It says live, a live button. If he touches that request to join might pop up. Well,
Yes.
oh, look who's there, Wayne. You look different.
Our guest is here. We're trying to get him on. Wayne, where's the button that
Yeah, as soon as I
that
joined,
said
it said send a
join?
request to join, and I just clicked on it, and then another prompting screen came up, and I just hit the send, and then you accept it. So
And if
Okay,
he's,
so
if
maybe
he's,
he should, maybe he should jump off the live and
You
jump
should,
back on, and
yes.
maybe it'll pop right back. Right, pop.
that could be, but also if he's using his computer, he won't have request to join.
No, I think he knows to use his
Okay.
cell phone.
All right.
Dr. Rashidian, try to jump off out of live and then jump back in and see if it'll pop on automatically.
Hope everybody had a great weekend.
I did. Do I
Oh,
look
you
scholarly?
definitely
I had
do.
my
I was like,
scholarly
oh my
sweater.
gosh. I was running behind. I had a new client today, so I threw a jacket on over my shirt I had on.
I had to throw some steps down today, though. I have to tell you, they didn't look. They look so white. I can't even tell you.
And
how
he's saying
bad
it
they
didn't.
look.
It didn't do it.
Oh, you say he didn't do it?
Oh,
Are we sure he's using his phone?
oh no, let me call.
Because that was my problem in the
Yeah.
past. So when I was at a local college, Denver University today, and I was challenged by a young man that I was too old to know any kind of hip hop step.
Phone or your computer?
So I did a
Oh,
ball
no.
chain.
on your cell phone, Instagram.
I did a ball chain step and then stepped off and did a little, well, what I called a moonwalk, but it wasn't. It didn't even come close. But I
Yes.
at least got his respect.
This is the phone that you're using that you're on now? Okay, try again with your cell phone because it's not appropriate for it. It doesn't work with. Okay.
Ah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
he was not.
computer.
Yeah, that was not gonna work. Ah. Yeah.
Oh my.
Okay, so while we're waiting, this little piece I have right here could help you, Leslie. It's called a Joby. So it's
That's what I have.
okay. So you put your phone in the Joby, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a little tripod?
That's what it's sitting on.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're looking good, girl. Doing well.
It's just too high. I feel like my chair
you know what
is
else-
up and I'm like.
Oh, sorry.
No, you.
The ring.
I was just gonna say you pay attention to us. Don't pay attention to you.
Yeah.
You look good to us.
Ah,
That's
there you
all
go.
that matters.
The ring lights work. The ring lights work well as well because they just go to
Yeah.
whatever height, adjust to whatever height you want. Plug your phone in there, and there you go.
Okay.
Lighting and everything.
Yeah, I've got a ring light too, but it makes me look nasty.
Oh,
I tried a blue light and a red
Oh,
light and a
there it
tail
is.
light, and it just. Bleh.
Okay.
That's a technical term, by the way. Bleh. What is this with the
Oh, my
tie? I look underdressed.
I'll take it
off.
What is this? My goodness.
So do
I
I was
told you,
wearing it all day.
And
Oh, you just
Look
took
at-
it up.
you're gonna throw down that diploma stuff behind you. I'm gonna just start putting a tripod back here, an easel with stuff. I'm just kidding. Welcome
Yeah,
home.
Awesome.
You're one of the family.
Hello. Welcome. Yeah, it wasn't
That's
so
right.
the problem was you were on the computer, huh? I don't know. I was just talking about I wish Instagram would get on board and let this be a computer platform because I don't like using my cell phone either.
Well, and there's not enough screens to have 4 big heads on the same screen.
Oh, it's perfect. My head
Come
isn't
on.
big. My head isn't big. I don't know about yours, but so so we'll give it like another minute to let people jump on. People are jumping on now. Welcome. Come on. We have a special guest today, and it's going to be another amazing discussion around anxiety. This is part 3, but tonight is going to close out. So while we're waiting for people to jump on, I'll just go through a few admin really quickly, like I did last week. So again, I've been asking, am I doing therapy? I am back doing therapy. I do both psychotherapy, individual and group. and I do psychological assessments. I am located in Fayetteville, North Carolina, though, guys. So, and I'm in the process of getting boarded by, credentialed by insurances, but I do take Blue Cross Blue Shield now, and I take Medicaid. I am, though, and I'm excited to say this, I am about to facilitate a cognitive processing therapy group for men. I did it when I was in the VA for trauma, and I loved it so much that I am going to offer it again. It's a 13-week standardized course, so you have to allow 13 weeks, 13 to 15 weeks. But I am about to do a cognitive processing group for therapy for trauma for men. So stay tuned to hear more about that. So the bookstore on the Mental Health Talk website was sold out of Anxiety Relief for Kids and Mindfulness Meditation for Beginners. It's back in now. We have more copies of those books now. So those of you who wanted to buy those, go ahead. They're in the store now. Other items in the store is a magazine. Thank you guys for selling them. Shipments go out every Monday. For that, whatever you buy, shipments go out for Monday. Unless you go to the merchandise, that is through a third-party store. If you buy T-shirts, mugs, etc., they're shipped directly out from the third-party store. There is a few space in the magazine for ads, but we have another week before we get everything out to publish the magazine out in 2 weeks. So if you want your ad in the magazine, now is the time, or you're going to have to wait until the next magazine come out. We do have our packet in the being reviewed by Barnes and Noble, so we're excited about that. So hopefully they'll pick that up because that'll open up doors for the magazine to be in other spaces. And we are always looking for contributors, writers, etc., to join our team of writers, our fabulous, diverse team of writers that we get together and spew all these nuggets and information around mental health and medical health. It's just such an amazing thing that we're doing, and I'm proud of the team. So thank you guys so much. So let's get started. My name is Dr. Leslie Rogers. I am the owner of Mental Health Talk, LLC, and projects, the Mental Health Talk magazine and Men's Separate campaign. And on here you have with me Dr. Lowell Whiteman. He is owner of 360 Mindset and elite coach. I like to call you, I don't know why I keep calling you, I say NFL performance coach, right? NFL 6
performance coach.
You work for all sports, right?
Yeah, so I'm a mental performance coach. I deal with performance issues between the body and the brain.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. Mental performance coach, right? They call him Coach Whiteman.
Yes, they do.
We have Wayne Lassane on here, who's also in the field. He's working to get his certification in mental health. And he and his wife are doing a really great job on their own practice around couples therapy, couples and intimacy therapy. So he's doing a really great job with that. Kudos to you, Wayne. And then you might see a new person, a new face on here. This is our special guest, and I'm glad he calls himself the man behind the method, the man behind the method, holding a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry and human biology and a doctorate in chiropractic. Dr. Amir Rashidian is a founder of the Mid-Atlantic Chiropractic Center that was established in 2006 and serving over 18,000 patient visits annually. He is a business consultant and a very active speaker at corporate events, conventions, and churches, and is frequently interviewed by the local media. Dr. Rashidian has more accolades under his belt. And to read more about his bio, I'll put his website in the comment box. So please look him up and check him out and read about his bio. So, guys, this is part 3 of anxiety, building awareness around anxiety. And initially, we came on here thinking we were just going to do one episode about anxiety. Then we be getting comments saying, hey, do a part 2. And here we are at part 3.
Yeah. We're just too
so tonight,
good.
Exactly, right? Because you know why? Because what did our research show? That a lot of us experience anxiety. Anxiety is one of the largest experience disorders among men. Oh, and Dr. Rashidian, this is a Men Suffer Too live. So we build awareness around men's mental health. Okay. So anxiety is very prevalent in men, right? And when you think about the largest, the most prevalent disorders, anxiety and depression, of course. So just to recap what we've gone over, we covered so much. We went over generalized anxiety disorder, which, okay, I'm going to quiz you guys. Wayne, Dr. Lowell, generalized anxiety disorder is what?
Oh, that's just basically general anxiety just around just everyday life things and such and such and stuff like that. So yeah.
Right. And what's that? What's the main difference between generalized anxiety and social anxiety?
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
Could be anybody or anything.
Yeah.
Social
Yeah.
anxiety is typically people.
But remember, it's difficult to control the worry.
Correct.
Right? It's difficult to control the worry. So social anxiety and social phobia, then the main feature is what?
Thing.
Anybody on here looking know what we talked about? What's the main feature of social phobia? I'm gonna start quizzing y'all every week now.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
The fear of being scrutiny, fear of evaluation. Right?
Yeah.
That's why I get anxious. I'm
I
anxious.
feel my anxiety building up in me right now.
Yes.
Asking me these questions.
So fear. So generalized anxiety disorder, you have that worry. It's excessive worry that's just out of control, and you have difficulty controlling worry, right? Then the social anxiety is the fear of scrutiny of being evaluated when you're in large crowds, right?
Like the way we
When we
dress.
talk about agoraphobia too. The difference between social anxiety and agoraphobia, people with agoraphobia fear there's no way out. There's no escape. Okay. Then we have panic disorder. When we talk about panic disorder, we talk about those physiological aspects that come along with that, right? We talked about triggers, which are people, places, events, etc., that promote anxiety. You have environmental, personal, smells, sights, feelings, memories, and we didn't talk about this, but I'll say a lot of times when people are in substance use groups and they return to environments, right, that triggers are, it makes them at risk for relapse, right? So they have to change the environment, right? So the triggers can be places, persons, places, environments, etc. We talk about cues. Cues are warning signs. Cues can be physical, rapid heartbeat, sweating. How do you know you're becoming anxious, right? Rapid heartbeat, sweaty hands, racing thoughts, nausea, gastrointestinal problems. Behavioral, hyperventilating, clenching fists, pacing back and forth, which is also a cue for anger, to recognize anger. Raising our voices, emotional, anger, sadness, crying, cognitive, what we think about, right? And reducing, we talked a lot about reducing. Part 2 was reducing anger. Strategies put in place to reduce anger, listen to me. Anxiety, such as therapy, of course, cognitive and behavioral therapies. Meditation is one of the largest strategy to reduce anger. Meditation, mindfulness meditation. I do a lot of mindfulness meditation. I used to do mindfulness meditation groups. Not only does it help reduce anxiety, it helps promote sleep as well. Did you guys know that? Mindfulness meditation. I often tell my patients, you slap those headphones on at night and listen to a guided meditation video, and it might help you fall asleep quicker as opposed to trying to go to sleep with that external noise. Breathing techniques are always good. Breathing techniques help to, we talk about the fight or flight syndrome, your body returning to its natural resting state. Breathing techniques help your body to return to that normal state of relaxation. So does mindfulness meditation. Now when we talk about panic attacks, we can't stop panic attacks from happening, but when they happen, we can work to de-escalate it, right? And it takes practice. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes practice. We talked about grounding techniques, right, which is another technique. So you see, guys, we talked about quite a bit, and we said nearly 1 in 10 men experience some form of depression or anxiety, but less than half seek treatment because of those stigmas and negative views of ourselves, others, and the world as a lot of concept. Ourselves meaning, what do we think about ourselves? You know, why don't we want to get treatment or therapy, or why don't we want to see doctors? You know, you have men that don't even want to go to a medical doctor to get preventative measures such as prostate exams and stuff like that, right? What are others going to think about me? I often think that we get so anxious about what others think about us, but it's really us internalizing what we think about ourselves, and we're projecting it onto others, which causes anxiety. And then the world in a larger context. What does society say about men, you as men, right? Men are supposed to act this way. Men are supposed to act that way. And things of that sort, which causes anxiety, can result in anxiety. So we have covered so much, right, over this time. So I wanted to ask Dr. Rashidian to come on, because he too, you know, talks about anxiety and talks about ways on that we can work, not, you know, just men, that we collectively can work to reduce anxiety. In this case, we're talking about mental health for men, but how we can work to reduce anxiety from the physiological aspect. So I'd love to hear from you. This is this discussion, you know, it's nothing formal. We're just going to have a discussion. So take the floor, Dr. Rashidian.
Give it up for Dr. A. Give it up.
Well, thank you very much.
My sound effect.
And you know, like you said, anxiety is that fight or flight response. So I work more with the physiologic aspect of it, because you know that you can either let your mood dictate your physiology, or you can let your physiology dictate your mood, and you can change your physiology through certain things. Like you already mentioned some of them. Breathing is extremely powerful. You know, bottom line is this: stress is everywhere. We're always stressed. You can't avoid stress. And what I've found is when you try to reduce stress, your adaptability towards stress decreases as well. Physiologically, we are designed and built to adapt. Adaptation is survival. And so when you put stress on the body adapts to that. And that's how we build patterns, physiologic responses. Now, a lot of that come out as emotions and behaviors as well, but it's physiology. And so I really study that stress response of fight or flight versus, you know, they call it wine and dine or rest and digest. I call it rest and repair, because repair occurs in that other phase, which is parasympathetic. And so with sympathetic responses, pupils dilate, blood leaves your face, your hands, and your feet. Heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, heart's pounding. Here's the interesting part. It's the same as excitement. So you could be excited, you could be suffering from anxiety, and your body responds the same exact way. And so one of the ways to reframe that might be to just ask yourself, what am I excited about, as opposed to what am I anxious about? Because you may search for something positive when you talk about excitement. It's the same thing. But I also know from a physiologic standpoint, anxiety will lead to illness, because when your body's in that fight or flight, sympathetic overdrive, long-term, chronically, because of the heart rate being up, that's when you're susceptible to high blood pressure issues. But also, two systems in the body actually slow down or stop in that same state. One is your immune system. Those are the people who catch colds in the summer. Those are the people who have sinus infection on the first day of vacation, because they just spent 2 weeks preparing to go on vacation. You know, whenever we go on vacation, you work extra hard the week before just to get ready. You get on vacation, now you've got a sinus infection. Now you're sick. The other system that slows down is digestion. You know, if anyone's who played sports, they know this. Before the big game, some kids go out to the side and throw up because your digestive system can't handle it. So now if you're in chronic sympathetic overdrive, you are the one who has chronic indigestion and constipation. There are people who say, I've had cold hands, cold feet, frequent sinus infections, and constipation for years and years. Well, first thing we have to do is shift them out of sympathetic. Sympathetic or fight or flight should be 20% of your living time, and 80% should be parasympathetic. Unfortunately, where we live and how we live and what we're going through, a lot of us are living in that sympathetic much longer than 20%. So what I do is work at it. You know, Dr. Leslie works on it on the psychological side. I work on things on the physiologic side.
Anything, Dr. Lowe, Wayne?
Well, I was, I'm glad you mentioned some things, Leslie, and then Dr. A. There's a difference for me with anxiety once we get to the physiological part, because it can be chronic or incident based. Like, for example, there's a movie out currently that's a wonderful example of realities for some, but it's a story called The Whale, and it's about anxiety, grief, and the anxiety that came from the grief of losing a partner and struggling with that partnership and having anxiousness about that partnership because it was not socially acceptable. Well, the anxiety caused the individual to just consume food. So physiologically, they went way past reasonable ends and suffered because of it. Now, that's an extreme. Don't get me wrong. That's an extreme. But it's a great example of how an anxious moment in an incident can turn to a chronic situation and become not anxiety anymore. It now becomes a physiologically detrimental condition for that individual, which regretfully in the movie, but realistically in the movie, they showed that the individual succumbed to the physical stress that the extra weight put on this individual's body, and they died from chronic heart failure, which is a chronic disease. So I want to make sure that people understand the scope with which we're talking here, that when anxiety in the casual incidental situation occurs, it can have extremely detrimental physiological outcomes, and that it's important to be aware of your body, be aware and witness to that for others, because look at it, if we're a society of loving, caring people, then we shouldn't have any problem talking to our family and friends about loving, caring thoughts that may not sound very good right off the bat, but the intent is to protect you, shelter you, be there for you. And that's in the movie. Again, there were people surrounding this individual, trying to help them come through it, get through it, but they were both also enablers. So there's some cautionary tales with regard to the physiological, psychological impacts that anxiety can have. And I know with me, with athletes and entertainers, I face it on a routine basis of them stepping over the line from wellness to illness. And it's important to be mindful and aware of those circumstances.
Yeah. In the end, that's the anticipation of something happening too, right? We define anxiety as anticipation of something happening. And when you talk about anxiety being manifested from other disorders as well, such as depression, right? A person with depression may exhibit anxiety symptoms because of the symptoms that they're going through with depression. Just like the flip side, a person with anxiety may become depressed because the anxiety symptoms are seen as uncontrollable.
And I also like that you talked about just having that exciting energy. The excitement energy is the same kind of energy as anxiety, and that if you can understand and see what that feels like, then you can know what it feels like on the other side of it. Because I too was a person who, before my track meets, I would throw up, with all that anxiety and all that anticipation before my meets and everything. So, and I think that, that's a good one, because again, it helps people reframe anxiety, what it looks like and what kind of energy it is, because it's all based from the same energy, but it's not so scary when you look at it as excitement, when it's looking at it from the anxiety aspect of having just the fear.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And Dr. I lost my train of thought. Rashidian, you when you talk about anxiety, you talk about from the perspective of how the brain attributes something as being dangerous, right? Or how the brain communicates that danger to the rest of your body, and then your rest of your body
Right. No,
response.
absolutely. Absolutely. So the brain body connection is tremendously important and powerful. I'm sure you're familiar with the brain body reward cascade. It's the reward cascade that gets interrupted that makes people susceptible to even drug addictions and alcohol abuse is that brain body reward cascade. There's a system of rewards for the brain that the body produces, whether it leads to dopamine release or serotonin or something else, and that can get interrupted. Now, one of the most interesting, I'll share two facts with you. One is the very first bone in your neck is called the atlas, or C1. And when that angle of the atlas is less than 14 degrees, this is why we take very specialized x-rays of our patients. When it's less than 14 degrees, because of the pressure it puts on the brainstem, it makes you susceptible to ADD, ADHD, sleep apnea, insomnia, depression, anxiety, and mood swings. And it's because it's interfering with that brain-body reward cascade. And so correction of that is powerful. Another one I've noticed is antihistamine use for allergies seems to be connected with need for antidepressants. And the reason for that, you look at the data, anytime antihistamine or allergy medication use goes up, antidepressant use goes up, and it's because you have 3 histamine receptors in your body. You have H1, H2, and H3. So an antihistamine blocks the H1 receptor, which means more histamine goes to H2 and H3 receptors. The H2 receptor, when it gets hit with histamine, it causes digestive disorders like indigestion and heartburn. And the H3 receptor, when all the histamine goes to that, will cause depression, anxiety, and mood swings. And so when we're taking antihistamines long term, we are more susceptible to anxiety and depression as well.
Yeah.
How many football players do you have as patients?
I have a few. I have a few. Not too many pros,
Yeah.
but
I do. Yeah, I have more than my fair share of pros. I refer to professionals like yourself, and regretfully, some of them are clinical psychologists and psychiatrists because they've ignored the symptoms. One, because they didn't know about them, and when they do know about them, they try to deny it, as we talked about earlier. Men try to push that to the side because it's not masculine enough. Being vulnerable is far more powerful, in my opinion, than anything else that you'd ever do. But that C1, and I am, it's hard for me to even admit this sometimes, but I'm a recipient of what you're talking about, because I've had compressions of C2 through C4, and then when we looked at it more closely, the C1 is involved as well. Nothing that can be manipulated to a positive place, but I've had the focal injections to help the spacing and so on, because my symptoms were shoulders. So it's interesting how the body gives you the signals to help you through the mental anguish. I had shore shoulders, say that really fast a few times, that was indicative of the C4 compression, because it's conjunctive down through here. And then interestingly enough, I started feeling uncomfortable in my legs when I sat in a chair, all of which is part of that structural compository of C1 through C6, actually, not just C4. So I then said, well, let's take a look at this. And after about 5 years from that examination, I have been I've requested from my physician, I'm on low dosages of MODs, so I can stay focused, stay attentive, because I was told by one person that I was
MOD?
adult.
Low.
Pardon me?
What is MODs?
Mood altering drugs, some kind of drug that's going to help me. And I didn't need them, but I was behaving in a way that it was indicative of ADHD, adult onset of ADHD. So I said, well, let's take a closer look at this. And I'm going to, be patient with me. It's basically a process that I ask everyone to think about, being more aware of who you are, and actually listen to the people that are saying, Doc, you're just not the same today. Hey, coach, you said that to me, and I didn't really understand what you said. And so there are symptomatic processes that we can go through every day to examine who we are, and so that we get the right meds, we get the right meditation process and frequency. I've upped my meditations from 3 times a week to every single day, because it's essential to get me on a level plane of maximizing my attention span, my focus for me personally, and awareness of others. So I really resonate, Dr. A, with that C1 situation. So everybody should go in. I've advised my junior high to high school athletes to get physical structural exams so that they know that their whole skeletal system is balanced. And I've learned from what I've gathered from my colleagues in that profession of watching gaits, watching shoulder shifts, hip placements of females, because as you might know, ladies, you're longer than we are. Your hips are different than we are. You have more connective tissue at hips, knees, and ankles to go out of whack than men do, because we're just, believe it or not, we're built differently. Did you know
I
that?
did not.
It's totally amazing. I didn't know that till I was 40. Anyway, so I'm trying to be very serious, though, about the awareness will greatly improve your request and the specificity of the request really lining up to what's good for you. And it's because we've got way too many people in this country, probably globally, that are over-medicated or medicated for the wrong reasons.
Right.
But
Yeah.
increased awareness, increased understanding of what Doc said about the C1 and the structural componentry of your body will give you so many great answers about helping yourself be holistically well and taken care of. Sorry, I thank you for your
real
patience.
quick. I also wanted to talk about, you touched on how your brain rewards your body, and so actually the first time my wife had a panic attack is because for whatever reason she got to such a euphoric state that she felt overly good, and it sent her into a panic because she felt like, wow, am I supposed to feel this good? And it sent her into her first full-on panic attack. And so since then, she doesn't deal with caffeine, or she doesn't touch anything because of the fact that happened to her. So, and so when you said that, I was like, oh, wow, it reminded me of when I guess her body may have released too much, and it sent her to a panic state. Yeah.
Absolutely. It can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming and shocking, and that shock factor can certainly do that. You know, what's interesting is bringing it back to anxiety is when we do experience anxiety, the neocortex shuts down. And so your ability to reason, logic, think clearly, that actually slows down or stops. And then all the blood's going to the primitive centers of your brain, which is fight or flee, fight or flight. And what the other thing that happens is not only are you not able to think, like an example would be a college student walking into a classroom to take his final exam. He's been studying for a whole semester. He's got it all. He learned everything, but he's really, really nervous about this test because let's say this test determines the rest of his college career, maybe the rest of his life. And he's walking in, but he's got it all, but he's really nervous. But then he trips as he enters the classroom. That trip is kind of like what you're talking about, is it takes him over the edge. Instantly, the memory wipes out. He forgets everything he was going to do and say. And so the anxiety of that moment, he was already anxious. He tripped. He thought he was going to fall. Now he can't remember anything he studied, and he's going to fail that test.
Oh.
So it's so critical that we watch that. Another one is because of the cortisol response in the body when we're anxious, anxiety does prevent weight loss. And so cortisol issues usually lead to, in men, stomach fat. Blood sugar issues lead to upper back fat. So, those of you who are listening, men, if it's hard for you to lose that belly fat, you're working out all the time, you're eating right, you're doing everything right, and belly fat's not going away, it's a cortisol issue. And that anxiety has a lot to do with that.
Wow. Excellent. Question, I heard you talk about vitamin deficiencies, right? Can you talk a little bit about that and how that potentially impacts mental health?
100%. The gut has a lot to do with serotonin release, and so we want the gut flora to be normal. So that's one. Is probiotics are huge Prebiotics are huge as supplementation. Vitamin D is very good for your mood. What's interesting is vitamin D gets produced by your body when your skin is exposed to sunlight. But what most people don't understand is, and this is where my chemistry degree comes in, I look at the molecular structure of vitamin D and I put it next to cholesterol. It's almost identical, except for one double bond. And so what happens is when sunlight hits your skin converts cholesterol to vitamin D, which is phenomenal. And so a lot of people who have high cholesterol actually are probably deficient in vitamin D, and they need more sunlight. Now, supplementing with vitamin D is good. It all depends on how much you need. I would get blood tests to make sure you are deficient. And if you're deficient, you got to get blood tested probably 6 months to a year out to make sure you replace the vitamin D properly. You can't do too much vitamin D. But, you know, I'm a big fan of whole food vitamins because whole food vitamins have the entire molecular structure, not just a fraction part of the vitamin. So I don't want to digress too much because I really want to keep this about men and anxiety. However, a lot of vitamins are coming from, they're fractionated vitamins that are coming from plants. So they'll take a B vitamin out of a plant like pantothenic acid or thiamine, and but it's fractionated. Now keep in mind, plants don't like oxygen, only humans do. Humans and animals do. Plants like carbon dioxide, and so we're taking plant-based vitamins. Sometimes we're increasing our chance of cancer and aging. And we need to be taking animal-based vitamins. Now, I apologize to the vegans and vegetarians. However, you know, cow liver, bovine liver, is packed full of antioxidants that humans need, and it can be tremendously beneficial. They do make pills. You don't have to actually eat the liver. You can take supplements that have bovine liver in it, which has the best types of vitamin B that you need. Now, B improves your ability to handle stress. B vitamin.
And that's what I was exactly. And I was asking related to vitamin deficiency. Is there a link between vitamin deficiency and anxiety?
Yeah, I mean, the main one would be vitamin B, because your tolerance and your adaptability to stress will drop if you don't have enough B vitamins. B1, B2, B9, B5, you know, B12, they're all critical, and they all need to be checked and supplemented.
Yeah. Actually, I think that I really appreciate you talking about just food and vitamins, because I think that's not spoken about enough, because how it can alter our moods and all this such thing, and within our physiology of our body, just how important foods are to us. And I think that we don't really think about that because we just eat and we just like, oh, it tastes good, and not really understanding what we're doing to ourselves by putting certain things in our body. So I thought I appreciate it, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, and go ahead, Doc.
I was just going to say, I would be interested in what food groups do you recommend to give you the vitamin B, because the supplement companies have gotten wind of people actually wanting these vitamins for some reason, and the prices are going outrageously out of place. So I was wondering if foods we can get at the grocery store, foods we can put in our diet that are going to amp up that vitamin B.
You know, eggs are good. And then organ meats are good. And then outside of that, I don't think people eat enough garlic and onion. Garlic and onion, obviously lots of vegetables. Now, I'll tell you something, and I wrote about this in my book, and I always say how you eat is more important than what you eat. And this sounds a little controversial, and it's based on the French paradox. See, in France, and I spent 3 weeks in France hanging out with the locals, and I noticed that this is actually true. The French are immune to heart disease and cancer. Heart disease and obesity, because the way they eat, not what they eat. They take their time. They eat in a relaxed state. See, what happens when you're anxious, when you're worried, when you're nervous, when you're upset, when you're angry, whatever you eat, it can be the most perfect food, the right macros, healthy for you. It turns into poison in your body because you are not ready to receive that food. Just like, when you were saying about before the track race, can you imagine eating a sandwich right before that race? It's not going to work. But when you're angry and upset, you're sitting in rush hour traffic, talking on the phone with a client, and you're eating, that food can be healthy, but it's not going to be healthy for you. It's going to sit in your stomach. It's going to ferment. It's going to rot. By the time it gets into your intestines, it's not nutritious anymore. So what I do, and I'm busy, like you said, I see tons of patients. We have a large staff, 2 locations. I'm always busy. Whether I have 10 minutes to eat or an hour to eat, I sit down, I'll play some soft classical music, maybe Baroque classical music, because it sets your brain waves correctly. I'll take a deep breath. I'll say a prayer of gratitude, and I start eating, and I won't eat fast. Even if I only have 10 minutes, I won't eat fast because I can't be in that state of fight or flight while I'm receiving food. I have to be in rest and repair. And so if I run out of time, I pack up my food, put it away, go back to work. But I'm not going to allow that food to enter my mouth in a state of anxiety. And eating in that state makes you unhealthy, even if you're taking the right supplements, even if you're eating the right foods.
But then you're saying the environment is important too. When you talk about France, you know, some reduced anxiety, you know, country. They don't deal with anxiety and as we do here. You know, here in the States, we're under a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. Our eating habits are horrible. You know, for some of us, you know, there's a lot of variables there that contribute to anxiety, and the environment, like you were just talking about, is an important factor when you factor in, you know, who's at risk for anxiety.
Absolutely.
And disorders.
You know, in kindergarten in America, they tell the kids, stop talking and eat your food. In France, they'll tell the kids, stop eating so fast, talk to your friends.
Right.
Yeah, take a pause. Just for the benefit of our audience, on the vitamin B scenario, and Doc listed a lot of all the way up to 12, right? There are certain cautions. We want to make sure that if women are pregnant, don't eat liver. You know, the organ meats are fine, but when you're pregnant, liver is not a good thing to be eating at that time for pregnant ladies. But typically, one of my favorites, not Brussels sprouts. I don't care what you tell me, they don't taste good. Just saying, they just don't taste good. But Brussels sprouts are a big one. Then the more popular one is broccoli, the green leafy vegetables. One of my favorites is chickpeas. Love chickpeas. And then there are plenty of fruits that you want to take a look at. But I want to go to what Doc said about the when you're in France. Europeans have not only a way to eat that's beneficial to us, but what to eat when. Like when to eat vegetables before anything else is a good process because they metabolize better and they help to metabolize other things like carbs, like that wonderful pasta that you're going to have with those vegetables. So even though I love pasta primavera, you might want to separate the two, the pasta and the primavera. No, just kidding. But just some thoughts for our audience.
Yeah, and I want to make sure we mention testosterone because we're talking to men here. Low testosterone can affect your mood as well, and you want to watch that. And the reason I remember this was because you mentioned Brussels sprouts. The combination of kale and Brussels sprouts act like an aromatase inhibitor in the body, which lowers estrogen and raises testosterone. Indirectly raises testosterone. So kale and Brussels sprouts are good ones.
And to that point, go to the fruit side, lemons. Put lemon on that kale and Brussels sprouts combination. You got, okay, guys, just take care of it. Be careful, okay? Just be careful.
Put balsamic glaze on the Brussels sprouts. You'll like them. So, okay. So when I come out to Colorado, I'll cook it for you and your family, and you'll love it. Dr. Rashidian. So, any advice as to, you know, reducing anxiety outside of what we talked about, outside of, you know, appropriate foods and intake? What advice do you have for men and for, you know, whoever's watching to kind of reduce anxiety from a physiological standpoint? Exercise
is powerful. Rhythmic, repetitive movements are good for you. Now, music is extremely powerful. Music does change your physiology. So many times you can listen to a song from, you know, the best time in your life, and you forget a whole lot of your worries because you literally go back to that time where everything was amazing. So, but we have to allow that to happen, obviously. Early morning sunlight is very powerful. You know, go sit outside when you know the sun's just coming up. It's a beautiful time to be out there anyways, and it's quiet. But those sun rays have the most UVB rays. UVB doesn't cause cancer. It gets rid of a lot of issues, helps you produce vitamin D more, gets rid of things like psoriasis and eczema on your skin, expose as much skin as possible, make sure you're not wearing glasses or makeup, and get out in the sun early in the morning. But rhythmic repetitive movements like walking is powerful, dancing is powerful, and obviously I'm a big fan of weight training. You stress yourself so that the other things don't stress you. So you go out there, and when you have that weight in your hands, you can't think about your bills. You can't think about the financial troubles that you had. But now also, and I hope I say this correctly, because sometimes our anxiety is because we haven't achieved what we want to achieve, because men want to produce. Now again, I don't want to generalize this, because we all have different lifestyles and so on. But internally, a lot of us want to be providers, producers. We want to go out of that cave as a caveman and hunt the big game and bring it home and feed the family, right? But if we're failing at that, or if we're falling short at that, I think that will lead to a lot of these things. And what you have to do is understand one of the main reasons we don't achieve what we want to achieve is because we're not willing to accept or able to adapt to the stress that we will surely face on the road to building the life that we want. And so many times we go down that road and then we go, this is too much stress, and we quit, and we usually quit an inch from the goal line. Unfortunately, we stop just a little bit short when you go, no, the stress is part of life. See, I never tell my patients to reduce stress. Yes, reduce anxiety, but never tell them to reduce stress. The minute you think about imagine if I went to the gym and every time I went to the gym, I lifted less weight than the day before. Eventually, I'm not lifting any weight, and I'm not stronger, I'm weaker. Reducing stress is reducing your adaptability to stress. And so when we constantly focus on reducing stress, we become weaker and weaker in the face of stress. Now the stress that didn't bother you before will bother you. I teach that there's this thing called a GAP. GAP is general adaptation potential. It's the tolerance you have to stress. So you can, let's say, handle this much stress. When your stress level is in that gap, you're okay. The minute your stress level goes above the gap, you're susceptible to illness and injury. As an athlete, that's when you pull your hamstring. You did that sprint 1,000 times, but this time you pulled the hamstring. Why is that? It's because your overall stress was above the general adaptation potential for you. Or you caught a cold. You're like, wait a minute, yesterday was just as cold as today. Why did I catch a cold today, not yesterday? It's because your general adaptation potential, your stress level went above that. But now what you have to do is go to the top of that and wait till you adapt, and then raise your stress level, and then adapt. Just like when you go to the gym, progressive overload. You add a little bit of weight, you learn how to lift that weight. You add a little more weight. You cannot be reducing stress. The greatest achievers on the planet, the ones that look like they got it all together, the ones that seem like everything they touch turns to gold, they have a different definition of stress. They have a different relationship with stress, and they never focus on reducing stress. And the definition of stress is this: it's a force that causes change in your life. So you can have good change or negative change, but stress is neutral. Stress is like fire. It can burn your hands or it can cook your food. Stress is like money. It can fund terrorist activity or it can put your kids through college. It's the same thing. Stress is a force, and you've got to learn to use it. You got to reframe it and accept it, invite it into your life so that you can use it just the same way we use the weights in the gym to grow bigger, stronger, better, and more capable.
Wow, excellent. That's powerful. Who's that? Theories, the GAP. Is that Sealy? Is his name Sealy for general adaptation syndrome?
I heard about that in chiropractic school, so I don't know who discovered it.
Yeah, I think it's
Hans Selye coined the word stress, and he talks about the non-specific response to stress, which is he discovered. He talked about eustress and distress. Eustress being good and distress being bad. But yeah, it's along the same lines.
Yeah, you got should read about that if you haven't. It's a general adaptation
I said
syndrome, or what did you
potential.
say? General adaptation potential. Yeah. A great read about physiological aspects of stress in your body and how stress builds up and things of that sort. And it talks about parts of the brain that's involved in that. Oh my gosh, this was such a great discussion, and this ends our series on anxiety. Thank you to Dr. Rashidian for coming and dropping all those nuggets.
Yeah.
My
That's
pleasure.
pretty good. That's pretty good.
That was amazing. Next week we're going to talk about trauma, right?
Yes.
PTSD. Is that next week?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, next week we'll start PTSD, which that's a huge one. A lot of people want to know about that. A lot of information behind that. Again, guys, I'll be talking about stuff too, because I'm about to do a trauma group, cognitive processing therapy for men around PTSD and trauma. So next week will be a good discussion, I think. So if you guys can, hop on 7 o'clock p.m. every Monday Eastern Standard Time, unless you hear otherwise. You guys have anything you guys want to say before we jump off? Any questions from the group? You guys are silent because we can't hear you, but you can type. Any questions from you guys for Dr. Rashidian or any of us? Any final words?
Again, I appreciate you bringing in the food aspect to it. I think, again, like I'm reiterating from earlier, that I just think it's something that's not spoken about enough, and I think that food goes a long way. They say that, all disease and starts in your gut. So, we take care of our gut, we take care of our body. So, I just, again, thank you for that. Yeah. My
pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Rashidian, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to meet you, and also commend you for all the things you said about the connection of the body, brain. That's my wheelhouse. But more importantly, the body-brain connection is just one of many connections within the body. Skeleton, nerves, blood, tissue, all's connected. The more we're aware of that, as you pointed out, the better off we are from a holistic point of view of living a quality life.
100%. Yeah. You guys are doing great work. I appreciate you all.
Thank you so much. We love to have you again, and I love to have you write for my magazine. Come on, join the team. Help us get these stigmas out the way. So we are going to jump off. Thank you so much, and until next week, we will see you then. Thank you so much for your ongoing support of mental health.
Bye.
Uh-huh.